Hi and welcome back to Sadie's Spincraft. Today we're going to talk about knitting, specifically knitting with handspun, because I've only learnt to knit since I've started spinning, because I spin yarn that is for knitting, not for crochet. So I tend to knit more with my own yarn, because if I crochet with it, it unravels because of the way things are done. I'm not sure how that works, but there's some science behind it and apparently it's right, which is why you have crochet yarn and knitting yarn. So, and also I can't read patterns, so I have this image in my head that I need to transfer to paper and to fabric or whatever it is I'm making. So I decided with this video, it's just because I'm missing half my head, I decided with this video to show you how I go about making a shawl and not losing where I am. Let's get it out and give you a pattern. I think you can't really see it because it's the light coming through. Let's put it in front of me. We've got the stockinette and garter stitch, and it will be changing in thickness or width, whatever, throughout the shawl. I'm going to show you how I write it down, and then so that I don't lose where I am. And at the end of the pattern, I tend to condense it all. So rather than writing each row out again nice and neat, I won't. I'll do, say, row 1 to row 4 or 3, and then repeat to row whatever 10, and then next lot row 11. So I'd do that part, then repeat to the end of that part, and then the stockinette and repeat to the end of the stockinette, and so on, because I've got garter. So it's just a garter and stockinette pattern, but it's going to change throughout. And this is my own handspun. It's not bought. It is like a DK weight. It'll look better when it's down on the, when we're facing downwards and we're using the back camera, not the front camera. And then, yeah, I'll explain where I get using which size needle, what I want to make, and things like that. So I'm going to get you set up so you're facing the table, and we'll go from there. So as I predicted, you can actually see the pattern now because there's something behind it. And then if you look at this, this is only 48 rows and it looks a jumbled mess to anyone who's looking at it. But when I turn it into a PDF and hide it in my phone, it's actually only about, it's not that big, because I'd condense that first 10 into like 3 rows, and then the next few into another few rows. And the way I chose this yarn for this pattern, for some reason I can just see it in my head. I don't know how it works for other people and other people that create the knitting rather than following patterns or anything like that. But I wanted something warm and thick, but that actually looked quite pretty. I didn't want a lacy shawl. I didn't want one with lots of holes in it. I didn't want one with lots of drape. I wanted one that was nice and warm. So I know I'm not going to have enough of this yarn to finish this, but I did have a yarn to go with it in mind. So I'm going to get that yarn now because I haven't looked, but I'm going to put it next to it and see what I think, because it'll be like a striped in colour, but the stripes won't match this pattern, if that makes sense. I don't think it does until you see it, because the colour will change halfway through either one of the garters or the stockinette stitch. I'm not sure which one yet, but yeah, it will change and then we'll go from there. Let me just find this yarn. So this is the yarn I was going to use that I could see striping well with this orange. I will say I'm not sure if I'll make it striped or half and half or what yet, but I do want to change colours, and that is the colour I want to go with that. I'm so glad my mind works the way it should for a crafter. It's all over the place. Because if it didn't, I wouldn't get the things that I get. So anyway, back to knitting. If you've never used your own yarn before and you don't know what sort of yarn it is, whether it's DK or anything like that, and you don't have a yarn guide like this, what you can do is you can see these, maybe write these down for future reference. Get a ruler, and you can see on here you have an inch there. So what you'd do is you'd wrap your yarn around that, see how many wraps per inch you would get. Refer back to the notes you took on what these are. Say you had 13 wraps per inch, so you would be using a double knit. So it's really nice, is that, a double knit? Most of my yarns are between a double knit and an Aran. These here are the chunkiest that I've done. That one was a true 4-ply, and I do believe this one is classed as a super chunky, or it could just be chunky, I'm not sure. Let's just get it in there. I've stretched it now. Right, it's a chunky. So that's probably the biggest that I've done. I don't often get them that big, but I think that's just because I did a true 4-ply rather than my usual chain ply. This one is a 2-ply. I do believe it's Polworth, and it's a thick and thin. With that, I would probably use size 8mm needles. With this one, I'd probably use size 10 because it's a lot chunkier than the thick and thin. So yeah, you figure out, if you can't figure out with one of these and how many wraps per inch or whatever, just take a small amount of your yarn and swatch it with different needles. Find which one you think is best for that yarn, if that makes sense. See, this is why I don't talk knitting, because it includes technical terms that I can't do. But I wanted to show beginner knitters and that you can do what you need to do with your own yarn, no matter what size it is. But yeah, believe it or not, this is only a 2-ply, is this one. And then I'll be using some 3-ply. So it'll have a different type of texture as well, obviously, with the way the yarn is presented once it's knit up. But I do believe those are very good colours. And I have got some more of this fibre if I need more of this yarn. Whereas I don't have any more of this yarn or the fibre because I spun it all up and I used it in several weaving projects, and this was what I had left and I wanted to use it. So I hope that explains how I figure out how to knit, what's in my head, and so I don't lose my place as well. It's like I've stopped knitting. I know when I come back to this, I've got row 48 to do because I haven't written down row 49. So I write it down before I do it so I don't lose where I am in the pattern that I'm creating. When this is done, I am thinking about getting, well, I am going to put it into a PDF, and I'm hoping to send it out to a few subscribers to test it out. By all means, you don't have to change colour. You can do whatever you want. But for the pattern, as in the garter and the stockinette and the way it's going to change, and only the garter stitch is going to actually increase in width. The stockinette's going to actually stay the same the whole way through. I can picture it, but I can't explain it. Once it's finished, I will obviously show you. So yeah, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I will write them down and do a live on Wednesday, and we shall talk knitting and how my brain works with doing it a bit better, because I picture things and I seem to be able to create it, whereas I cannot read patterns, or I can read patterns, should I say. It's just that when I follow them, they never turn out how I envisioned it to look. So I tend not to follow a pattern, or it's too loose in certain places, or it's baggy, or I don't like the way the holes, there's some holes formed where you've got to, armholes, for example, where they connect and you're going round in the circle. I don't like gaps, which is what puts me off certain knitting until I can figure out a way I can do it without getting gaps, unless it's gaps that I would like to look pretty. I'm not going to say well, I just did. I'm not going to. Well, love and hugs to all you fantastic people out there. No matter where you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night time, I want you to do what you love doing. Love and hugs, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye, my beautifuls.